Number 1. Wingsuits are not very new, but the modern ones are better than ever. Number 2. Last October was the first ever Wingsuits World Championship in China. Number 3. You can buy a wingsuit for $600 to $2,000. Number 4. The water distiller is for place where it's hard to get clean drinking water. Number 5. To produce the water distiller properly, they still need help with investment. Number 6. The enable talk gloves were invented by some Ukrainian students. Number 7. The glove use sensors to turn sign language into text and then into spoken language. Number 8. James Cameron was part of a team which designed a submarine capable of descending to 10 kilometers down. Number 9. James Cameron was the first person to do a solo dive so deep under the sea. Number 10. MIT students have invented a product that helps people get the contents out of bottles. Once upon a time there was a poor miller who had 3 sons. After the miller died, he left nothing but his mill, his donkey, and a cat. The eldest son took the mill, the second son rode off on the donkey, and the youngest son inherited the cat. The youngest son complained and the cat listened to his master's complaints, but he pretended not to hear anything. Instead, he put on a serious face and said, "Don't look so sad, master. Just give me a bag and a pair of boots, and I will show you that you didn't receive such a poor inheritance in me." The cat's master had often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, such as when he used to hang on the hill or hide in the grain and pretend to be dead. He gave the cat his bag and spent his last pennies on ordering a fine pair of boots to be made especially for the cat. The cat looked very gallant in his boots, and putting his bag around his neck, he held the rope in his 2 forepaws and lay down by the rabbit warren, which was home to a great many rabbits. Not long after he lay down, he had what he wanted. A young, reckless, and stupid rabbit jumped into his bag, and Monsieur Puss immediately drew close the rope and caught him. Proud of his prey, he went with it to the place and asked to speak with His Majesty. He was shown upstairs into the king's apartment, and making a low bow, said to him, "I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren which my noble lord, the Marquis of Carabas, has commanded me to present to your Majesty from him." The Marquis of Carabas is a title which Puss was pleased to give his master. The king said, "Tell thy master that I thank him and that he does me a great deal of pleasure." Another time he went and hid among the cornfields, holding still his bag open, and when a brace of partridges ran into it, he pulled on the strings and caught them both. He went and gave this to the king as he had done before to the rabbit. The king in the same way gladly accepted the partridges. In this way, the cat continued to bring presents to the king for 2 or 3 months, always saying that they were from his master, the Marquis of Carabas. One day in particular, he heard at the place that the king was planning to drive in his carriage along the river bank, taking with him his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world. Puss in Boots said to his master, "If you will follow my advice, your fortune is made. You have nothing else to do but go and wash yourself in the river, in the place that I shall show you, and leave the rest to me." The miller's son did what the cat advised him to, without knowing why or for what. While he was washing, the king passed by and the cat began to screaming. At this noise, the king put his head out of the coach window, and finding it was the cat who had so often brought him such good game, commanded his guard to run immediately to the assistance of his lordship, the Marquis of Carabas. While they were pulling the poor Marquis out of the river, the cat came to the carriage and told the king that while his master was washing, there came some ruffians who went off with his clothes. The snaky cat hid his clothes under a boulder. The king immediately commanded the officer of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas. The king was very happy to meet the Marquis of Carabas, and the fine clothes he had given him suited him extremely well, for although poor, he was a handsome and a well-built fellow. The king invited him to sit in the carriage and ride along with him. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin to succeed, the cat returned the mowers and some of the river's corn. If asked by the king who owns it, then they must answer it belongs to my lord Marquis of Carabas, until made them terribly afraid. The king was very well pleased with it as well as the Marquis. Then the king went to go his castle. The miller's sons, not knowing what to answer, looked at Puss, who said, "If your majesty will but wait an hour, I will go on before and order the castle to be made ready for you." The cat jumped away and went to the castle of a great ogre and asked to see him. The ogre received him politely as an ogre could do, and made him sit down. The cat said, "I have been assured that you have the gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures as you wish. You can, for example, transfer yourself into a lion or elephant and the like. To convince the cat, the ogre will become a lion." Puss was so terrified at the sight of a lion so near him that he immediately climbed up the curtains, not without difficulty, because his boots were no use to him for climbing. A few moments later, when Puss sees the ogre has returned his natural form, he came down and admits that he very frightened. The cat was afraid that the ogre would not be able to escape even in his lion form, for the king would come with his army and intend to destroy it. The ogre looked out of the window and saw the king waiting outside with his soldiers. In an instant, the ogre turned himself into a mouse, and began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner saw this, but he fell upon him and ate him up. Then Puss welcomed the king to the castle of his lord Marquis of Carabas. The Marquis gave his hand to the princess and followed the king, who went first. His Majesty was perfectly charmed with the good qualities of Lord Marquis of Carabas, as was his daughter, who had fallen in love with him. The Marquis, making several low bows, accept the honor which His Majesty conferred upon him, and immediately on the same day married the princess. Puss became a great lord and never ran after mice anymore except for pleasure. There was some time ago a gentleman who was very rich. He had fine town and country houses. His dishes and plates were all of gold or silver. His rooms were hung with damasks. His chairs and sofas were covered with the richest silks, and his carriages were all gilt with gold in a grand style. But it happened that his gentleman had a blue beard, which made him so scary and ugly that none of the ladies in the parts where he lived would venture to go into his company. Now there was a certain lady of rank who lived very near him and had two daughters, both of them very beautiful. Bluebeard asked one of them to be his wife, But both the young ladies again and again said they would never marry Bluebeard. They both couldn't imagine having a husband with a Bluebeard. Besides, they had heard of his having been married to several wives before, and nobody could tell what had ever become of any of them. He had the lady and her daughters, and some ladies who were on a visit at their house, to go with him to one of his country seats, where they spent a whole week for parties. In short, the time rolled on in so much pleasure that the youngest of the two sisters began to think that the beard she was so afraid of was very polite and pleasant. In a very short time, they were married. About a month after the marriage had taken place, Bluebeard told his wife that he had to leave her for a few weeks, as he had some affairs to attend to in the country. He wanted her to indulge herself in all kinds of pleasures, invite as many of her friends as she liked, and treat them with all sorts of dainties, so that the time passes pleasantly until he come back again. Bluebeard gave his wife the key. She must not enter, nor even put the small key into the lock belongs to the closet at the end of the long gallery on the ground floor. If she disobeys him in this one thing, she would be met with the more dire punishment. However, her curiosity was too great to make her break her promise, and finally she opened the room. When she entered the room, how shocked she was to find that the forbidden room contained the corpses of his former wife, the Bluebeard. The room full of blood and corpses left her shocked and scared, and she accidentally dropped the room key into a pool of blood. She also tried to clean the blood from the key and was confused the blood stains didn't disappear from the key. In a panic, she went to tell the incident to her sister. Then they planned an escape the next day. Unexpectedly, the next day, the Bluebeard came home sooner than she expected. Bluebeard found the key with bloodstains. He immediately knew that his wife had broken her promise not to open the forbidden room. With anger, the Bluebeard took a sword and dragged his wife into the forbidden room to be killed. Before being killed, his wife asked for one request, namely to be given the opportunity to pray. Because Anne already knew that would happen when the Bluebeard returned home, she immediately helped her sister, who was about to be killed by the Bluebeard. Not long, her older brothers and Anne come to help her get rid of the Bluebeard. Finally, Bluebeard fought his older brothers. After a fierce battle, Bluebeard lost and was killed. Because he had not heirs, all of Bluebeard's wealth fell into his hands. Then she distributed it to her sister and brothers. She remarried to a man of her choice and made her forget Bluebeard's cruelty.